What's going on, YouTube, and welcome back to Gold Line Hockey. It's your boy, Kevin Forte. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Colorado Avalanche. Guys, what is going on in Colorado? The Colorado Avalanche find themselves second last in the Central Division standings, finding themselves with 10 points on the year. Injuries are building up. They're 7-8 to start the season through the first 15 games of the year. What's going on in Colorado? Is this a lost season for the Avalanche, or can they find a way to claw their way back? We're going to discuss that here today. All right, so here we are, the Colorado Avalanche through the first month of the NHL season, and things have not gone well for this team, to say the least. They've had a lot of injuries, even before opening night. They've had a lot of questions about just what is this team? What is their identity? Because this is a team that when they make the playoffs, we know they are very capable of going on a run, winning a Stanley Cup like they did a couple years ago. There's no true doubting that this team is capable of that if they can make it to the playoffs. But the question is, with the way their season has started here through the first 15 games, 7-8 record, are they going to have enough in the tank through the rest of the season to get back to the playoffs? Because right now, I'm not totally sold that they will make the playoffs. And, I want to think that this team can get to the playoffs, especially with superstar talent like Nathan MacKinnon, probably one of, if not the best players in the National Hockey League right now. It would be a shame to see him miss the playoffs this year. And then you consider the back-end talent with guys like Cale Makar and Devon Tays and some of those players like that. This would be a rough loss for the Avalanche if they really do miss the playoffs. Now, let's go back to the beginning of the season, because there were injuries before opening night. We saw them place Jonathan Drouin on injured reserve back on October 11th. Obviously, they have been without Gabe Landeskog now. For now, it's going to be 2 seasons since that knee injury. Val Nichushkin, he's in the NHL's Players Assistance Program. He's back in North America. He's back in Denver. Not sure when he's going to play again, but there seems to be a progression on that timeline. Tucker Poolman had a head injury. He was placed on the LTIR. That was back on October 8th. Miles Wood, right around Halloween, he had an upper body injury. He's on the injured reserve. Ross Colton, right around Halloween, a foot injury, expected to miss the next 6 to 8 weeks. So the next 2 months. So maybe we'll see him at the end of December, hopefully. To say the least, this team has a lot of injuries right now. And that's definitely a part of the reason they are struggling right now. But the problem is, the Colorado Avalanche are a team that's always had the depth to get through that. And it doesn't maybe look like that's the case this year for the Avalanche. Looking at their penalty kill, 70%. The league average is around 79, 80%. So they're well below average there. Their power play percentage, as always, is very good, 34%. And the league average for that is around 21%. So they're definitely in the top 10 of that category around the NHL. Looking at their goaltending, this is where we start to get to the storylines here. So they have already had to throw out 3 goaltenders this season. So Kaapo Kähkönen played in 1 game. He gave up 4 goals in that game. Not his best performance. Justice Anunen, he has played 8 games this season with an .894 save percentage. That is the best save percentage out of the 3 goalies so far for the Avalanche this season. And it's still not good enough. And then you got Alexander Georgiev, who we know is a guy that, when he's on his game, is a world beater. He is a very good goaltender. When he's playing the way he is right now, though, he's not so good. He's an .851 save percentage, over 4 goals against average so far through his first 8 contests. That's not going to work. The Colorado Avalanche want to make the playoffs. They cannot be giving up 4 goals a game with Alexander Georgiev in net. It's just not realistic. And Justice Anunen has 5 of the 7 wins from the Colorado Avalanche goaltending has come from Justice Anunen. And that's great that he's playing well, but then you consider if you saw anything of a semblance to what we've seen from Georgiev in his winning ways, this team could be so much further ahead. And like I said, I don't want to completely blame it on the goaltending here, because there are a lot of issues on this team, which we're going to get to, other than the goaltending. But to not highlight the goaltending here would definitely be a disservice, and it's definitely something to consider. And then you think about, well, if these guys just played just a little bit better, who knows where they would be, right? So That's something to keep in mind. In terms of the totals this year, the guys you expect to be playing well are doing what they need to do. We already have 29 points in 15 games. So that's basically 2 points a game for Nathan MacKinnon this year. And and they still have the record that they have. So you can't blame this one on Nathan MacKinnon. None of this is on him. And when you consider the fact he has 29 points, that is incredible. But they're not playing the way they should be right now. Cale Makar with 24 points, pretty much the same thing there. And even guys like Mikko Rantanen and Casey Middlestat, they're both above a point per game. So where is the issues for this team? Now, this is where maybe it comes down to some of the younger guys on this team that maybe you were hoping to see a little bit more from. And that's where our first kind of victim here, Nikolai Kovalenko, he's a -5. Yeah, he has 6 points on the season, but he's a -5. That's not a great stat. Same thing for Logan O'Connor. He's a -5. Parker Kelly, a -8. Callum Ritchie, a -7. Chris Wagner, a -7, a -2. Like, those guys tell the story of the Avalanche. The guys that are in the minus, those are the guys right now that are in the bottom 6 of the Avalanche. They're giving up too many goals in the bottom 6 of their lineup, which means their depth isn't there the way it probably should be. And that's kind of what we're seeing from the Avalanche right now, you know. And it's a shame because you look at, like I said, what we just talked about with Makar, MacKinnon, basically 2 points per game. How are they still losing games when you have a guy that's scoring that much? And I hate to say this, but this reminds me a lot of a team that I made a video about last week in the Pittsburgh Penguins. And the Pittsburgh Penguins relying on MacKinnon to get it done, right? Or the Penguins relying on Crosby to get it done. And then the depth behind that not really pulling their weight. I think it's a little bit more well-rounded in Colorado than it is in Pittsburgh. And if I had to choose between Pittsburgh or Colorado, who would turn things around to make the playoffs, I would definitely put Colorado there for a multitude of reasons. And obviously the biggest being that I think they do have more depth than the Pittsburgh Penguins. But with that aside, you know, when you look at their goals for, they have 52 goals this season. They're 8th in the National Hockey League. They're scoring goals. They're doing great there. But when you're 30th out of 32 teams for goals against, that is what's going to sink your season. And when we always talk about it, we always bring this topic up, defense wins championships. For the Colorado Avalanche right now, both on the defensive side of things as their defensemen and their bottom 6 checking lines, they're not getting their fair share of the work done. And the Colorado Avalanche find themselves with a 7-8 record. And like I said, we're gonna look at their schedule and how they've played so far, and it's kind of frustrating because you see a lot of games where they're scoring goals, but they're still losing because they're just giving up that many more. And I think what's frustrating is that first 4 games of the season, they really just weren't there. The vibe in Colorado, you could tell the fan base was pretty upset. That was such a great opportunity for them. They lose the first game of the season against Vegas, dropping 8. They gave up 8 goals against Vegas at T-Mobile Arena. And then you figured, all right, we have 4 games at home to really correct this before we take on some of the teams in the, in the easier part of the Western Conference. So they lose the games against Columbus, the Islanders, Boston, which all 3 of those teams have, the Islanders and the Bruins haven't been that great. Columbus is Columbus, but they actually played fairly well to start the season. You kind of look at those games like those are games that could have been get-right games for the Avalanche. They didn't. They finally turned it around a little bit. They beat Anaheim. They beat San Jose. They beat the Kraken. They beat Utah. They beat Ottawa. And just like that, they're on a 5-game winning streak, and you're thinking, all right, the Avalanche are back. And then pretty much once we hit Halloween and they lost Jonathan Drouin, things fell apart again. And then they went on to lose 3 games after that 5-game winning streak. And since then, they have won a game, lost a game, won a game. They've been all over the place this year. And I think what's frustrating is you look at especially that Winnipeg game where the defense and the goaltending did really well. They gave up 1 goal against the Winnipeg Jets, the red-hot Winnipeg Jets, but they failed to register a goal. When they finally looked like they were playing good defensively, they weren't able to get a single goal. And You know, you look at their most recent game, there's reason for optimism here. They beat the Hurricanes 6-4. Yeah, you don't like giving up 4 goals, but you scored 6. You found a way to win the game. You play Nashville, LA, Washington. Then they play the East Coast swing, going to Philly, Washington, Tampa, Florida. They're going to do that little swing before the end of the month. And the end of November is going to be difficult because, like I said, they play Washington on the road, Florida and Tampa. Both those teams are playing really well. Then you have to head back home to take on one of your rivals in the Golden Knights. Then they have to head down to Dallas, and then they end the month with a game against the Oilers, who, yeah, the Oilers have been the Oilers. They haven't been great to start the season, but they seem to be turning things around. And if they continue that till the end of the month, that could be a pretty meaningful way to end the month of November for the Avalanche. So with all of that said, this Colorado Avalanche team can definitely turn it around. I have no doubts about that. But is this the theme of this year's team, that they just give up so many goals that Nathan MacKinnon, Kel McCarr, Rantanen just have to outscore the opponent? And that's going to get tiring. And this team's going to get worn down if that's the way they're going to play this year. And it's not sustainable. So they have to play a little bit better defense. That is a given on this team. But the question is, can they play as a team better defense? Because they have defensemen that are pretty good. I think Josh Manson, yeah, he's maybe not what he used to be, but he's okay. There's no way he should be playing as bad as he's been playing. I think of a guy like Francois Beauchemin when he came in, and maybe that's because both these guys came from Anaheim and they go to the Avalanche, so I'm thinking of Beauchemin kind of in a similar light, but I see a lot of similarities there in their game, good and bad. So for the Avalanche, like, I don't really know what to say here. Like, I really thought that 5-game winning streak was going to be what put them back on track. And then it just seemed like they let go after that. I know, like I said, they've had a lot of injuries. Things are not going easy for this team to start the year, as well as not having guys like, not having Nichushkin, Landeskog in the lineup. And now you throw, like, losing Drouin to start the year. It has not been easy, but good teams find a way, and if the Colorado Avalanche are to make the playoffs, they're going to have to fight their way back in. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What do you guys think of the Avalanche? Do you think this is maybe just a reset year for them? They have way too many injuries up front that it's hurting them, and maybe just the lack of cohesion from guys in the bottom 6. It's just not gelling. It's not going together with guys like Wagner and Parker Kelly and some of the other guys down there. I want to know what you guys think. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I'll see you again next time.